It was formerly called the Founders Day, with the
Hello, good to join us on News Hour at 2. My name is Sani Abdurrahman. We'll be telling you in this package a lot that transpired with the Fix the Country campaign. But first, let's start with the Founders Day. We know today, Wednesday, August 4, 2021, is the Founders Day, and it is celebrated to commemorate the efforts of our forefathers who led the way toward Ghana's independence. Prior to the passing of the Public Holiday Amendment Bill into law in March 2019, Founders Day was formally celebrated on September 21, to mark the birthday of Ghana's first president, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah.
The Founders Day was formerly called the Founders Day, with the letter S appearing after an apostrophe. It was celebrated to mark the achievements of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and in remembrance of the struggle for independence by Ghana's brave Big Sis, as the name implies. President Akufo-Addo, upon assuming office, and based on the call to celebrate other members of the Big Six, proposed a legislation to Parliament to designate 4th August as a new date of the Founders Day celebration, to widen the scope of the celebration to cover all people who played a key role in the liberation of the country. August 4th was chosen as the date for the Founders Day as it marks two important events in Ghana's history. It is the date for the formation of the Aborigines Rights Protection Society by John Mensah Saba in 1897 and the formation of the United Gold Coast Convention UGCC in 1948 by J.B. Dankwa and George Alfred Parr Grant. This will be the third time the day is being marked in the country after Parliament approved it as a statutory holiday in 2019. The Founders Day is also a day on for Ghanaians to reflect on the sacrifices of the forebears who fought for Ghana's independence. It also encourages all to appreciate the sacrificial roles its leaders had played, whilst they do same by committing to the country in all endeavors.
Let's stay a while on this story, and we have been joined on the phone line by a historian, Nana Esilfi Kondia, to discuss more about the journey of this country from the many struggles that our forefathers had to go through to attain independence for us. Nana, thank you so much for your time on News Hour.
Thank you.
Nana, apostrophe before the S or after the S for you?
Well, I would always put it before the S.
Why?
Because I know of only one founder. If there are founders, then we have got to go back several years, because there are many people. The idea of using that word adjective, founder, has simple meaning, that of all the people who did what they did, whether they contributed or fought or put their lives down on the line for it, one person stood out. And this country and the world agree that was Kwame Nkrumah. So a lawfully Parliament decided constituted parliament decided that it is Kwame Nkrumah, and the world acknowledges that. So if at a later date, in a later year, we think that we have been discriminatory, or we would seem to be having become what you call treacherous or ungrateful, and we want to involve all the others in every endeavor. People contribute, but there's one person who stands out. So if you want, then let's really separate that old one from the new one, but we don't cancel it. It's a cancellation that obliterates history. It's an attempt to obliterate history, and for the sake of the man you are seeking to twist the history, the man remains. Kwame Nkrumah is Kwame Nkrumah. You cannot do any other than that to acknowledge him, whether you like him or not, right? So I would have preferred that we stayed that celebration tied to his birthday, 21st of September, and then, of course, appropriately decide to say that we are also commemorating those persons. Incidentally, if you do in that list, you can never leave out Kwame Nkrumah's name.
No, wouldn't that be a duplication, since they were all fighting for the same objective, even though he may have stood out?
Young man, you know, for in everything that we do in this life to achieve at heroic levels, there's always one or two persons who stand out and cannot be obliterated or taken out when we come to this kind of business. So I do not think that the argument that the separation will be duplicating it is really valid. It is so hollow, I'm afraid. I cannot take it. I won't accept it.
No, I'm getting the impression that you are part of those who are of the view that there is an attempt to rewrite history.
Oh yes, we have been on that journey since the past 3 years or before to change the history. But let me say to you, as I've said elsewhere this morning, radio and other television stations, that you cannot change history. And the reason is very simple, that once you change your history, you don't exist as a nation, because the foundation of every nation is the fact that it has history. But when you have a history that the people or some of the people begin to turn into a puppet on a string, change it as and when they feel like it, you have not stayed your history, you've not framed your history. So anybody else outside of you will think that you really don't know your history, and you don't have it. And as a nation, therefore, you don't exist.
Nana, as Ghanaians, what should this day remind us of?
What should this day remind us of?
Yes.
Did I hear remind?
Of course, we know the role that the forefathers played in bringing Ghana to where it is today. But as upcomers...
They played a role. I have explained and defined it to you, that in all of these endeavors towards the effort to the end of achievement, you will always find an outstanding person. You understand? And it is that in history that is mentioned and that is celebrated. We've come back belatedly to recognize that we perhaps were being discriminatory or ungrateful. Fine. Nothing stops us from bringing all of them in, going as far back as 1742, before the Bond of 1844.
That's quite impossible.
It is not impossible. Why? The history is there. Write a roll of all of them. We would be in a position not to write all of them because memory fades. But this one, the memory has not faded because the evidence exists and persists.
Nana, how should, my question is, how should this remembrance of the significant role our forefathers have played in our lives as Ghanaians today shape our future?
we should be able to sit down in this confused state soberly to think about how do we bridge this widening gap in a nation that must have a history, and that history must be sacrosanct, that history must be intact, that history must be respected by its own people so that others outside who know it may not turn us and turn around and say, don't mind them, they don't have a history. And as a nation, I repeat, no nation exists without a history. And if we are doing this to our history, for whatever reasons, then let us be sure that we'll sooner than later become a nation without a history and a nation which does not exist. We shall remember, yes, those who did, but among those who did, there are foremost. I'm not contending that people did not. I've told you that it goes as far back as to 1742, Kwame through Chief Kobrejan, and down to these people. We should be grateful to them. You mentioned Power Grant. What is there in this country that celebrates Power Grant? What is there that you can say to me that we are showing gratitude to Power Grant, who decided to put the pieces together in gathering that people for UGCC? We have been such an ungrateful people, but I'll tell you, all the grants don't mind because power was power. And I'm proud to belong.
Nana, grateful for your time this afternoon.
Pardon? Thank you.
Grateful for your time this afternoon.
Pardon?
I'm just thanking you for speaking to us on this subject. That was Nana Esufi Kondia, who has been sharing his view and perspective about why the apostrophe should be before or after the S as we celebrate our Founders Day. Still on this subject with one voice, panelists on GBC News Current Affairs program Focus are urging Ghanaians to reflect on the sacrifices of our forebearers who fought for Ghana's independence as we observe the Forefathers Day.
It is an occasion to reflect seriously on our journey as a nation so far, and to see whether these people that we are celebrating today really will be happy today to see what has become of us.
If you ask me, the contribution of people who fought to ensure that we were liberated from subjugation, there is no way you can talk about that. And the reason why Yasantua's recognition is important because this was a woman who, in that conservative African culture, stood up, when men failed to do so. So if we want to extend it that way, then we would have been adding a lot of names.
I believe that these are people who we are supposed to celebrate in so many ways. And there are even more outside these six that also deserve some celebrations. Yeah. But of course, in every struggle, in every institution or organization, there are always people who sort of lead, and I highlight it. And so for me, I think that it's in its proper place if these big six, as we've all known, are being celebrated. I mean, growing up in every corner, even now, in every corner of Ghana, it's easy for the child in KG2 or Class 1 to mention the names of the big six. They are the people we've known, we've grown up knowing.
Still on the Founders Day, for some people, history is just a subject of study in class, a collection of names and stories in voluminous textbooks. But there are many reasons history is important well beyond an exam in class. And Ghanaian historian Professor Robert Edufenin, who has made major contributions in documenting the history of the Achim Ebuaka and of Ghana, is challenging Ghanaians to go back and reclaim our past, as this will help understand why and how we came to be who we are today. It was an exclusive chat with GBC News' reporter Shelley Bewa as we celebrate the Founders Day.
4 decades of experience as a history lecturer, 7 books and over 40 publications. Professor Robert Adofenin says encouraging the young generation to study their history and embrace their peculiar culture is a shared responsibility.
We don't study history, we don't study our culture, and we are just robots. You see anything on social media, we cling to it. Not to know what happened before you were born is to forever remain a child. So if the children don't understand what happened for them, they have no appreciation of the values of this society.
He lived through the independence struggle and shares his experience with GBC News.
I lived through the CPP UP struggle in those days when I was a student at Tech. My own father was a farmer, but he was a strong admirer of Nkrumah, and there were rallies that my father attended, and so I lived through the riots of 1948. In fact, I was in Koforidua the day the riots broke out. I was playing the role of a Loris mate of my father's trotro. And immediately it happened, we ran back to the village.
Mentored by renowned Ghanaian historian Professor Albert Edubuahin, Professor Adofenin says Ghanaian writers must take pride in what they do and aim for professional excellence. There has been a debate over whether or not Dr. Kwame Nkrumah should be credited with founding Ghana or not. What are his thoughts?
Nobody can say, one person can say, I am the founder of this place. You are a leader, you work with a team, So, of course, you can't mention everybody, you mentioned it, but you must acknowledge the others.
What comes to your mind when you think of the African story? Is it poverty, war, and disease? In other words, all doom and gloom? The system of storytelling on Africa is too often incomplete and stereotyped. For example, reports on conflict in some African countries seem to give the impression that all of Africa is at perpetual war. His view is that Africans must invest and tell their own unique stories with an African touch and not allow foreigners to continue to craft the African narrative.
The textbook that we used in my days were written largely by Europeans, and they did not understand the culture of this country. And as I used to tell students, I always want to write for my people. I write for Ghanaians, not for Europeans. And I tell them that when the white man writes his history, he writes for the British, the French, or the German. But it looks as if when we write history, we write for the European, not for the Ghanaian. If you read some of my books, I never write Ashantis. I write Asante-4. That's how I write it in the text. Achim-4, Kwawu-4, because I'm not writing for the white man. I'm writing for Ghanaians, and that's what Ghanaians know.
Undoubtedly, this narrative needs changing, and there have been numerous calls for more writers, especially from Africa, to tell the African story. For GBC News, Shelley Bewa reporting.
As we mark the Founders Day, the Fix the Country campaigners have also hit the streets of Accra to demand that government addresses the many economic and social challenges facing the country. As of 6 a.m., some participants had already stormed the Obra Sport near the Kwame Nkrumah Circle in Accra to commence the march. Our correspondent Rachel has been following the event since morning and will be joining us via phone to tell us how the event started, what were the highlights of the protests, and give us more details to appreciate all that transpired as far as the Fix the Country campaign is concerned. Rachel may be joining us on the phone or in studio. And production team is telling me there is a bit of change in plan. But before I bring in Rachel, let's go for this quick break. I'll be right back.
breakfast. A la carte.
It's a brand new packaged breakfast served on GTV, our style, keeping you on track and updated on
news making the headlines, how to navigate traffic,
What's up with the weather?
your health check, getting you up to speed on
lifestyle,
Sports.
word of showbiz, what's hot and what's not.
It's our date in the morning just for you. With the team you can trust.
it's breakfast, weekdays at 6 a.m.
On News Hour, after several failed attempts to hit the streets, the Fix the Country campaigners, finally they were allowed to embark on the exercise, and as of 6 a.m. They gathered at the approved route and marched through some principal streets in Accra here, where they addressed the media. My colleague Rachel Kote was part of the exercise to bring us all that's unfolded during the march, and she joins me in the studio. Rachel, thank you so much for, should I say, your time and your energy for being part of the protest, just to bring us details about the event. But tell me, let's start with the demands of the protesters at the end of the march before we settle for some of the details.
Well, the demands of the people cut across different aspects of issues: social, political, education, health, and all that. One was the fact that there are no jobs for especially the youth. And during the COVID, a lot of the youth lost their jobs. And the fact that government should make sure the one District 1 factory promise that he made, he is able to fulfill it, so that the youth in the various districts could have jobs to do. Because their issue was that Kwame Nkrumah, during his time, built a lot of factories that was helping with the economy. And all these factories are down. So government should do something, either to revive the factories or build new ones. And then there was the issue of constitutional amendment, that the country needs a major constitutional amendment. And then the health sector, they were demanding that government should fix the health sector, provide the various hospitals and clinics with all the necessary equipment and facilities, so that both the ordinary Ghanaian and then the state officials could access good health care without necessarily traveling outside, because it's all at the cost of the country's resources. Yeah,
on your screen now are pictures of the protests. As you can see, a lot of protesters holding placards with quite a lot of messages. On social media, I saw a placard that caught my attention. Somebody talking about the 20% tax on sanitary pad, and the fact that menstruation it's not a choice, and we ought not to be taxing such products. Can you take us through some of the messages that
another one that also caught my attention is the rent one. Fix our rent.
Quite a major problem,
quite a major problem in all the regions, in Accra, especially for the youth. And even a married man I saw was with that. I saw a married man with that placard, and I was asking why that message. He said he is married, but he cannot afford a good place to stay. In fact, even the salary alone cannot afford a 1 month rent. And that is so pathetic. So he was on the street. He is coming from Cape Coast. Some were coming from Zima, others were coming from the north to Accra to protest on so many issues.
And the protest was not just also in Accra here. On social media, a lot of people that were unable to join the march in person were on social media sharing the videos and also making demands as far as issues that they want the government to address to improve their living standard. Rachel, we know ahead of this exercise a lot of tension due to the fact that on a number of times when they attempted to embark on the exercise, they were kind of stopped by the police through legal means and that stuff. How was the security situation? Was the exercise calm?
Well, I wouldn't say it was all that calm, but it was successful, because they started from where they said they would start and then ended exactly where they said they would end. Just a few things happened. But the security presence there was so heavy. And at a point we asked one of the officers of the security agencies why the heavy presence of the police, because the crowd, the demonstrators were also worried that the security presence was too heavy. But their reason was that the kind of crowd that came today, if they were not, they didn't come with this kind of security presence, anything could have happened. And so they were ready with everything to make sure that there is peace and there is...
Okay, thank you so much, Rachel. If you
there
want
was an issue that happened. When they got to the Blaster Square, something happened. The crowd actually started chasing a section of the media. I wouldn't mention which media houses, about 3 media houses, and they were accusing them of being propagandists for those who are actually causing pain to Ghanaians, chopping money and all that. But the police came in and it was settled.
Quite surprising, because the Fix the Country campaigners also need the media to partner with them to get their grievances and issues advanced. If they start to chase the media,
they want them to be careful of
the drive.
They want them to be careful of what they say concerning this Fix the Country demonstration or campaign, because according to them, earlier in the morning, before they even moved from the Obra Sport at Circle, they had some of the media houses given wrong information out there, that there were just a few people, like 3 or 4. Meanwhile, when you came there, you could see crowd, thousands of people from all... we had intellectuals coming, media, top media officials coming in, and the businessmen coming, even vandals, they were there. Students, graduates, I mean, almost every cross-section of Ghanaian was there.
Rachel, were you able to pick whether this is the end of the protest, or they are going to continue if the grievances are not addressed? What's their next line of action, if you were able to pick
In fact, this is not the end of the campaign.
According to them?
According to them, they will continue to protest until the country is actually fixed as they demanded. They demanded. So they even brought in another important issue, that they brought in Parker Muhammad's daughter to come and speak. So she was one of the people who actually addressed the crowd, and she spoke so passionately. At a point, she was crying, and she was saying that the father has been taken away. The family is now in need, and nobody is there to help. Even
though we cannot establish whether her father, the late Kaka, was killed as a result of his activism.
According to her, the father was killed through the same kind of activism. And
so we await the investigation being conducted by the police to ascertain or determine who was behind the murder of Kaka. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank you.
At 7, we'll be waiting for the full report. Let's head over to the Ashanti region, where the Regional Security Council is deploying more security personnel to ensure compliance of the COVID-19 protocols within the region. At a media briefing, the Regional Minister, Mr. Simon Osemensa, said the move is to enforce the directives on the observation of COVID-19 protocols and keep the spread of the virus in the region. Health experts say the Delta variant is driving new COVID wave across the country.
Ghana appears to be facing a third wave of coronavirus infections driven by the more transmissible Delta variant. The Ashanti region has recorded an increase in active cases from 87 in April this year to 1,253 as at the end of July. The death toll has also increased from 216 to 297. At a media briefing, the regional minister, Mr. Simon Osemensa, said the relevant agencies are taking the necessary steps to contain the spread and the positive persons are in good health. He said individuals who violate the regulations will be arrested and prosecuted.
It has become necessary to tighten the enforcement of the various COVID protocols within the region. And the security agencies are going to ensure that we abide by or we observe all the COVID protocols.
On road accidents, the acting Ashanti Regional Police Commander, DCOP Ajimai Ajem, indicated that an average of 13 persons were injured daily, with a death toll pegged at 400. He said his men will be positioned at vantage points to check recalcitrant drivers and motor riders.
All motorists in the region are therefore requested to henceforth respect the rules of the roads. Otherwise, they would be arrested and prosecuted. But seriously, the ones we would want to tackle include, but not limited to, the following: drunk driving, overspeeding, overloading of vehicles, drivers driving on the shoulder of the roads, drivers and riders on the roads without the requisite documentation. Here we are talking about insurance, roadworthy, and of course licenses.
The acting Ashanti Regional National Fire Service Commander, ACFO Henry Giwa, said they are intensifying public education on fire safety management in the region.
Now let's do some health stories, because lack of funds has stalled the construction of a maternity block which began some 2 years ago at the St. Matthias Hospital at Yeji in the Pru East district of the Bono East region. This is affecting operations at the facility and frustrating authorities. The managers are therefore sending an urgent appeal to all, especially the Health Ministry, for assistance to finish the project and put it to use to help reduce maternal mortality. Peggy Amadonko has more in the following reports.
The St. Matthias Hospital at Yeji is the biggest health facility in the Pru East district of the Bono East region. The 24-hour emergency facility has a 147-bed capacity and is a primary healthcare provider offering surgical, pediatrics, obstetric and gynecology, as well as eye care services. Even though Matthias Hospital falls under the Christian Association of Ghana CHAG group, it serves patients beyond its catchment area, especially those from Sini East and West Oti, Pru West, and some parts of the Savannah region. Its over 350 permanent staff include 4 permanent doctors, 2 specialists, among other paramedics. Sitting in a low-lying area, during the rainy season, water from the township runs through the hospital. To deal with the problem, the hospital is constructing its own drainage system. Its execution is slow due to the lack of funds. Opened some 29 years ago, Matthias Hospital recorded a monthly delivery figure of over 200 monthly in 2020 and currently records 260, giving it an increase of 20%, creating congestion at the maternity ward. A maternity block which began 2 years ago with internally generated funds is still at the foundation level due to lack of funds, creating congestion.
Maternal mortality related to that is congestion and lack of space and logistics at the maternity ward. 2 years ago we started a maternity block. It's still at foundation level. It's at the back there. We started with funds from the hospital and then funds from the congregation. It stagnated because of funds.
Malaria, respiratory tract infections, common cold, diarrhea diseases attributed to bad sanitation practices are the most common cases presented at the facility daily. Peggy Amadonko reporting.
When the management of Unilever Ghana Limited paid a courtesy call on the Minister for Roads and Highways on Monday, the multinational consumer goods company assured the minister of its support in providing roads infrastructure, which is key in the operations of Unilever.
According to the managing director of Unilever Ghana, Mr. George Usuanta, the visit was to foster good relations with the ministry for their mutual benefits.
We say safety is a product. So not only do we sell key soap and cloth, we take safety as a product. And it is very, very important for us that everybody who works through our walls every day goes back home to their family, same peace, whole as they came. And every day what we work towards is to make sure that we don't have to visit any family and say to them, their loved one who came to work for Unilever is not coming home or is coming home but not in full part.
The Minister for Roads and Highways, Mr. Kwesi Amoakwanta, said Ghana has a total of 80,000 kilometers of road networks, hence it takes time for all to receive attention. He therefore called on Ghanaians to be patient whilst government fixes the roads. Mr. Amoakwanta said government is committed to the safety of Ghanaians and will consequently ensure that roads are safe for the citizens.
Government is trying to embark upon dualization of all our trunk roads in the country so that vehicles don't cross each other. Since you are in Tema, it may interest you to know that the first 17 kilometers of Tema to Afrawo beyond the Central University is under construction. The company is BHM, a British company. Tema roundabout to Akosombo is being dollarized by a company called Inzal. Accra, Kumasi dollarization is in currency. Accra Tema motorway is being worked on.
Mr. Amoakwanta commended his staff for their selfless contribution to the success of the ministry and also thanked Unilever Ghana for recognizing his contributions towards Ghana's development.
The Adan Traditional Council has drawn the attention of the media to what it calls an attempt to paint a picture of police intimidation and harassment in Adan to discourage the law enforcement agents from checking crime in the area. The council says some of the artisanal salt miners in the Songo area have become enemies of progress, attacking anyone in support of Electrochem, the company currently doing large-scale salt mining at the Songo mine and bringing progress to the area.
Government, in consultation with the Adan Traditional Authority, gave the Songo salt mine to Electrochem Ghana Limited for salt production under a 15-year lease agreement. The company, according to its founder, Mr. Daniel Macaulay, has so far employed more than 2,000 of the Adan youth and improved the lot of the artisanal salt miners by expanding the capacity of their mining pans and introducing modern technology into their operations. However, some of the artisanal miners, referred to as Achiakpo, have been attacking some of the people in support of Electrochem. The Makralo of the Adan Traditional Council, Nene Agude Obitre, who addressed the media, intimated that the Traditional Council suspects the coordinator of the Third World Network, Dr. Yahoo Graham, of inciting people in Adan against Electrochem and by extension the Traditional Authority.
The people that are talking against the arrests, have they also looked at what those perpetrators did and whether it was necessary in the interest of peace and justice to pick them? Have they considered that? The Traditional Council support that if it is even me and I commit a crime, I'll be picked.
The Traditional Council also says its attention has been drawn to a letter about an impending news conference to be organized by Dr. Yahoo Graham to make accusations such as late-night arrest, beatings, detention by the police without bail for people perceived to be against the takeover of the whole lagoon by Electrochem, to the exclusion of the local salt winners.
If you have people who have taken laws into their own hands, go and attack workers, seize equipment, which up to today, they can't even account for. So the police are not here to arrest just anybody. If you are law-abiding, you are free to work like me.
It's a news hour. We are live on Facebook, Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, and on DSTV channel 278. Stay with us. We're going for a short break. When we come back, business will be next.